On July 29, 2005, 16-year-old Maryland resident Amber Mary Rose tragically died when she was involved in a front-end collision in her 2005 Chevrolet Cobalt. Disturbingly, the Cobalt's airbags did not deploy. It was later determined that the likely cause of the non-deployment of the frontal airbags was tied to the vehicle's ignition switch being in the accessory position. This would be the first of 124 fatalities attributed to a faulty ignition switch installed in a number of GM vehicles in the years between 2001 and 2007. In 1997, GM began working on a new ignition switch for a number of their vehicles. According to an internal investigation by Anton R. Valikos, a former U.S. attorney, a meeting occurred in September of 1999 involving design release engineer for the new ignition switch project, Raymond DiGiorgio, and representatives from the Delphi Corporation, who had been contracted for the parts production. The focus of the meeting was analysis of the preliminary test results performed on the new switch. Delphi representatives told DiGiorgio that the switch did not meet rotational torque values in GM's specification, which stipulated acceptable values in the range of 15 to 25 Newton centimeters. DiGiorgio knew that increasing the torque would bring back electrical issues he had been having in the past, which he had also been unable to solve. Eventually, on March 22, 2001, DiGiorgio signed off on the design for the new ignition switch, signaling to the supplier that GM did not intend to make any more changes to the switch, despite the fact that a torque of only 5 Newton centimeters would move the key from the run to accessory position. The ethical issues present in this case are numerous. Under Section 72.2a and 72.2b of Regulation 941 of the Professional Engineers Act, DiGiorgio committed negligence and failed to safeguard public welfare by approving designs that did not meet the necessary safety specifications. Under Section 72.2d, DiGiorgio failed to comply by the safety requirements set up by GM for rotational torque. Under 72.2j, DiGiorgio violated the Act yet again when he refused to acknowledge his mistake. Under 72.2h, DiGiorgio was incompetent in resolving electrical issues in the ignition switch and approved designs in a state of frustration. There are many alternate paths DiGiorgio could have taken to prevent the ignition switch disaster. Firstly, he could have asked for the assistance of other engineers, or alternatively, asked for an extension on the project. DiGiorgio could have stepped down, acknowledging his inability to solve the problems with the ignition switch, and handed over the project to another engineer. Furthermore, he could have confessed his mistakes after receiving safety complaints regarding the ignition switch, seeing as he had multiple opportunities after approving the design to come forward. Ultimately, DiGiorgio should have asked for assistance from his peers regarding the problems he was facing with the torque and electrical components of the switch. Meanwhile, he should have also requested for an extension explaining to his superiors the failures of the current design. If he were not able to devise a solution to the issues he was dealing with, he should have approached the higher management with a modified design with reasoning for abandoning the previous model. If none of this had worked out, he should have stepped down from the project and requested reassignment. Tort law addresses the legal liabilities that occur when a party commits a tort, a wrongful act leading to injury. The three conditions for tort law are 1. That the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care, 2. The defendant failed in that duty of care, and 3. The plaintiff incurred damages as a consequence. The precedence for this case arises from Donahue v. Stevenson, where Mrs. Donahue fell ill after drinking a bottle of ginger beer containing a dead snail. In this case, the defendant, Raymond DiGiorgio, owed the plaintiff, Amber Marie Rose's family, a duty of care. DiGiorgio breached that duty when he failed to ensure that the ignition switch would remain in the run position during normal operation of the vehicle, which had the fatal consequence of disabling the vehicle's power steering, brakes, and airbags. The defendant's conduct cost Amber Mary Rose her life and her family a daughter. In tort law, it is possible to recover the cost of losses or injuries owed in a duty of care. Rose's family should sue Raymond DiGiorgio within 2 years of discovering the breach of duty of care and within 15 years of occurrence of the accident. In addition, due to the severity of the injury, the defendant cannot adequately compensate for the injury inflicted, therefore his employer, General Motors, is vicariously liable for the actions of the employee. In 2016, the plaintiff and the defendant reached an out-of-court settlement for a confidential amount in a U.S. court. Had this happened in an Ontario local court, the judge would have likely ruled in favor of the defendant, Rose's family, as tort was clearly established in this case. The family can seek compensation for aggravated damages as their daughter lost her life in the accident. Furthermore, general damage also applies in this case as injuries to the plaintiff cannot be assessed precisely. The plaintiff can also seek punitive damage to prevent the concurrent tortfeasors Raymond DeGiorgio and General Motors from wrongdoing in the future. According to the previous case history, total compensation is estimated to be in the range of $1 million to $5 million. If the defendant seeks for punitive damages, the sum could increase substantially.